Is the podcast? I mean, is it a visual podcast? Is there?
It's going to
or is
be
it
on
just
YouTube
audio?
and TikTok, so people will see you.
Oh my
And
god! Okay.
Okay.
I shave, and then it's also going to be on wherever.
So did
else.
I. No, I'm
Other
kidding.
podcasts.
That's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
I'm very much in need of a shave, so
Nah.
don't worry about that. And you have that lovely space background behind you. What is that? Is that a nebula?
That's just a piece of cloth. Sorry to disabuse you.
Yes.
He's not actually in space, Kovi. I'm sorry.
Michael's hobby shop or something. I don't know what it is. Yeah, stars, Milky Way, maybe.
I love it. Space cloth. Space cloth. And Emily, it looked like the person who just walked past you was wearing a Star Trek uniform.
No, he's not. We have a pretty lax office dress code, so we can wear whatever we want. I'm wearing a Stevie Nicks shirt today, so yeah.
Nice.
So we have a pretty flexible dress code and stuff. We had a sort of an office party, so if you hear any noise in the background, I think some people are still reveling for some reason. So I apologize.
No worries at all. I mean, here I am wearing a piece of the cloth that Bruce has hanging behind him.
I was going to say, where did you get that?
It is, yeah, space cloth.
Oh yeah, it does look like a Star Trek uniform. I saw that briefly as a web file. That looked good.
Like the exact.
Maybe I'm on the
it is.
Enterprise,
So it is.
so you don't know.
Oh, on the holodeck, it all makes sense.
Oh, that's awesome. Anyway, everyone, welcome everybody to the episode of The Nerd and the Scientist. And today we have two special guests, Emily Carney and Bruce McCandless III. They just released a new book, Starbound, and it's pretty much about the evolution of the space program, from the very first person to build the little rocket all the way up to sending people to space today. Emily's an accomplished writer and space historian and founder of Space Hipsters, a very popular community with tens of thousands of people who know astronauts, apparently. Every time I look in, there's just astronauts, and I'm jealous, beyond jealous. And Bruce is an author and historian, and also the son of the legendary Bruce McCandless II, who set the gold standard for the coolest photo in space ever. That's it. If you've ever seen a picture of a guy floating completely unconnected to anything in space with just a little jetpack, that's his dad. Welcome to the show, both of you. So, quick question: which space shuttle was the biggest?
Which space shuttle was the biggest?
Yep, let's go.
I'm going to say Discovery was, because it took the Hubble Space Telescope up.
Great answer. I would guess Discovery because it carried some pretty large payloads. Maybe Columbia. Columbia had the biggest butt. I know that much. Don't ask me why I know this.
Which part of the shuttle is the butt? I'm sorry.
The with the mains, it was a little back heavy from what I've heard. Don't ask why I know this. A shuttle astronaut actually told me this. I was like, okay. I guess it's how it.
Answer is Atlantis. Atlantis is longer, wider, and
the answer is Atlantis.
Heavier than all of them.
The one we didn't. The one no one mentioned. Okay.
Yeah.
Nope.
All right, you've humiliated us already, Benjamin.
No, I can look it up. But just before we started, I knew one of them was slightly big. It's like slightly bigger.
Yeah.
I knew that one of them was bigger.
I figured it was a few feet
and I had to
bigger,
look it up
maybe.
and just thought it'd be funny.
To make you feel a bit better, Bruce, that photo, the untethered photo that Benjamin was just referring to, I was using that this week to teach physics undergrads about conservation of momentum and how what do you do if you're untethered in space and you're floating away from the spaceship? Yeah. I'll see. Do either of you have a suggestion for what to do to get back to the spaceship?
If you're floating away from the spaceship, and the power source, in other words, you've received some sort of impetus. It's not continuing. You've just been shoved and you're moving away. Well, I've heard if you had your if you had your back to the spaceship, you could try to throw something and push yourself back that way. But if you're facing the shuttle and you throw something, that's not gonna it's not gonna help.
Yeah, that's gonna not help you.
But
Yeah.
I mean maybe that works in theory. I think it'd be awful hard to do in practice as you're screaming.
No, that was the exact example that I gave the students, because they were given a question that was similar of, if you're in a boat in the middle of a lake and suddenly you realize that your oars have been eaten by piranhas, and you have a bunch of gear and you have some friends with you, what can you do to get back to shore? And then the only real answer is to throw your gear in the opposite direction to the shore. So yeah, it's exactly that.
I went straight to throw your friends off the boat in the opposite way. the gear, throw the gear off.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would have gotten very dystopian with my answer, unfortunately. So yeah.
Or your friends are riders, so we don't really have friends. So that's
yeah, exactly.
An option we don't have.
We live in our heads a lot. So yeah, throw the whole friend group away. Just throw them off the boat. I'm kidding. Oh my god.
Just keep the tasty one. And then throw the rest of them overboard.
So speaking of writing, I am so curious as to how the two of you got connected to write this book together. What the impetus was for Starbound, and how you decided what. There's so much, as Benjamin just mentioned, crammed in from the history of spaceflight. So how did it all come together? What did you decide to include or not? Tell us about that.
Yeah, go ahead, Emily, if you want to jump in there.
Yeah, I'll start. Well, I've known Bruce for probably 5 or 6 years, I'm guessing now. Bruce came to Space Hipsters a few years ago because it's kind of, the group has been steadily just growing and growing over probably the past 15 years. I should know this. Mm-hmm. But basically, I met him through Hipsters a few years ago, and he was working on the book that he wrote about his father, Wonders All Around, which I'm a little biased because I helped proofread the book, but I highly recommend it. It's awesome. But anyway, I probably 2.5 years ago, I was talking to Bruce. We're just in, I kind of expressed an interest in, I need to write a book. I've written probably thousands of articles about spaceflight, but I need to actually buckle down and write a book, an actual book. And Bruce was like, well, I'm working on a manuscript now. We could work on it together. And I was like, that sounds awesome, because I like I said, I'm not just saying this because we did a book together, but I think Bruce is an amazing writer. I think Wonders All Around is really an excellent book, so I really, like I said, I'm probably a little biased, but I really loved it. I thought it was a great testament to his father and just what it was like to grow up during that time, etc. So we started writing on Starbound. As far as the content and how we sort of divided it up, we wanted to write sort of a narrative, a history of a U.S. spaceflight, but Bruce will probably bring this up in his answer, but there's this book that Colin Burgess, the Australian space historian, wrote about the Soviet space program. And it really was quite enjoyable, in explaining their program. It wasn't too academic, or it wasn't too it wasn't boring, basically. And we sort of modeled our book on his in a way. Nice. We didn't copy off of him, but we sort of modeled the idea. But as far as the work in Starbound, we wanted to write sort of a narrative about U.S. space history, but at the same time, we wanted to focus a lot on the people. We didn't want to just focus on, dates and mechanical stuff. People love that stuff too, but we wanted to make it have a human touch to it. And we tried to include a lot of things that, are kind of, you should know about U.S. spaceflight, but at the same time, we included some deep cuts in there, which I really am happy about. That's kind of the stuff that I love. We sort of included, Bruce is going to roll his eyes here, but sort of the mid-70s weird period in between time, where you had futurists talking about, we're going to have colonies in space. It's going to be awesome. We're going to have communes in space, y'all, and just weird stuff like
Mhm.
that. It's kind of a weird outlier
Don't we?
in space. Yeah, kind of strange outliers in space history that are sort of more deep cuts that aren't. You don't usually see them in books about U.S. space history because it's something that's sort of almost niche in a way. So I think that's. I hope that answers the question, but that's kind of how we structured the book and the writing of it. And we wanted to put sort of these little pop culture nods in the book. We have a few lists in there about like favorite songs, favorite movies, favorite astronauts. Although that was like trying to select your favorite child. Um, also some we have a list in there that we'll probably regret called our space predictions. So
Yeah.
yeah, we
Yeah.
have that
They're all
list.
wrong. Spoiler, they're all wrong.
They probably will be all wrong at some point, but that's okay.
You
We
never
tried to
know.
make the book
Time
as
will
up to
tell.
yeah. So I hope that answers the question, but that's really how we got to work with it. But yeah, we wanted to do something about U.S. space history, but we didn't want it to just be sort of a dry, you know, beginning, middle, end type of thing, if that makes sense. So Bruce.
Yeah, Emily's lying about all that stuff.
Oh,
We met
Rob.
in prison. We met in prison. No,
Okay.
we met because we met because we're freaks about Skylab. That's how it started. I
Yeah,
thought I had
that's
like
true.
some sort of weird perverted love for Skylab, but it turns out there are others who share the perversion. And Skylab was this bastard program. Someone said it was made up of murdered Apollo, parts from the murdered Apollo program.
Right.
And it was crazy because it was an attempt to sort of create a 70s habitat in space. After we'd seen this very sort of structured militaristic space program in the past, and they put a shower in Skylab, and they were talking about entertainment options. They were going to put an entertainment console in Skylab, and they did exercising and ran around the orbital workshop and grew these funky beards and mustaches, and it was just a funny program, and I get endless amounts of enjoyment reading about it. And Emily's one of the top scholars on Skylab stuff, and we sort of bonded about that. And one day she sent me something she'd found in some very obscure archives that was written by an Australian fellow named Phil Chapman, who was an American astronaut, and it was basically a memo he wrote to his fellow astronauts back in '69, very
70.
late '70. And he says, "Guys, we are screwed, man, because we're
Yeah.
coming to the end of Apollo, and no one's going to care what we do after that because it was so big and great, and the country's going down the tubes, and so we need to really double down on the science part of Skylab so people take us seriously, and it's a great sort of insight into what was going on at NASA at the time, and we bonded further over that, and one thing led to another, and we started working on this book. And as Emily said, Colin Burgess had written this very elegant but entertaining book about the Soviet space program. We thought we'd try to do something similar. We completely failed. Our book is big and sloppy, and it's got all kinds of extraneous facts and back alleys in it. But nevertheless, Colin was our inspiration, and we tried to do something similar for the American space program that he did for the Soviets.
That's awesome.
That's
I
it.
love.
I think.
Go on.
No, I think that's the genesis, and we've been real pleased. It's selling pretty well. We've got some great media, reviews. We're not getting as many reader reviews as we hoped. My thesis is people sort of sit down and start reading and get to Apollo, finish that, and they're like,
That's it. I'm done.
Yeah, everything that happened. I don't. Maybe they skipped the Skylab or the shuttle chapter, but we'd like to get some more reader responses out there to go along with the. We got a nice note from Publishers Weekly and from the Library Journal and that sort of thing.
Going along with you guys loving all those little fun backstories, anecdotes, and everything. I love hearing those types of stories, like Yuri Gagarin peed on the tire of the bus that brought him from the launch pad, and now every single cosmonaut to this day still does
Has
it.
to do it.
Right.
Or Young brought a sandwich up on
I still do it.
Gemini.
What are you talking about?
I can't every bus I go on.
Me too. No, I'm kidding.
I get some
For
looks.
good luck.
In San Francisco, it's part of it's what you do. And Young brought a corned beef sandwich up on one of the Gemini flights. I forget which one.
Three.
What's a good story like that? Gemini 3. Oh, I bet you're right.
What's a good story like that?
What's a good story like that? Something that we don't know.
I've been reading about Ed White a little bit because we're coming up on the anniversary of his spacewalk, and one thing that was kind of weird is that he's when he and McDivitt were up there in Gemini 4, they saw something, they couldn't figure out what it was, and it turned out to be a military, presumably American military spy satellite, and so there was a lot of back and forth about, what did they see? I'm not sure they were supposed to see it. I'm sort of tracking that down, that little going down that rabbit trail now, because I think it's the U.S. has always been very secretive about its spies, its sort of network of spy satellites, and I think this was probably an early breach of protocol that these guys were up there and said, "Hey, I see you. Hey, there's something else up here, and it's spiking. It's got big arms," and the news sort of disappears after that very first day it's reported. So I'm kind of tracking that down. I'd like to see what it was.
Oh, that would be hysterical.
Gosh. I think we're coming up on 15 minutes, but as far as the weird stories that are in the book, I really like the Suicide Squad story. I thought that was really cool just because you don't always hear about it. I thought that was interesting. Sort of the genesis of JPL was these guys just doing crazy stuff, and that was the genesis of, what we know now is, very sort of this very academic, kind of almost a Tweety, like, you associate JPL with these missions like, Voyager and stuff like that, which are very, have a long heritage and really a long record of science. I mean, Voyager's, God, almost my age. It's older than I am, slightly, and I'm getting up there, yeah. So I love stuff like that. Bruce has already mentioned this. I'm going to keep this brief because if I talk about this, we're going to be here for 5 hours. And nobody wants that. Okay. Of course, the Skylab stuff, just because a lot of books, there is a one fine standalone on it. Or there's a few good books on it, but David Hitt wrote a really magnificent book on it. But you don't see it written a lot about. I mean, a few of us have tried to close the gap, but you just don't see a lot of literature about it, or factual literature about it. And some of the activities that happened during the 9 months. So those are probably among my favorite parts, I would say.
Was there like a mutiny once on Skylab?
Oh God, no!
We don't talk about the mutiny.
Did I just trigger? Oh, I triggered. Because their schedule was like, it was like written down 24/7 to the minute, and they didn't have any time to think. And they eventually just turned off the radio or something.
Yeah, no, they didn't turn off the radio. I'll keep this very brief, but no, but basically they had Apollo lunar landing schedules, and they were doing a 3 month or 4 month, 84 day. They're doing an 84-day mission. You can't really have that. That's not how you can manage people during a very long mission. And unfortunately, mission control and the crew both had to learn how to manage that. And it's actually a very positive story. There wasn't a mutiny or a strike as reported, and it really contributed towards, the shuttle program later. So that's the short version of it. If I've done interviews where I've talked about this for hours, so I'll shut up.
Okay.
That's given me so many questions that I want to ask about, I mean, especially like this idea of just like the early JPL blowing stuff up, but we'll come back to that. We have to stop for a second to mention the sponsor for this week's episode, which I feel like you guys would actually really appreciate. So our sponsor for this season is sciencesocks.com. They basically make space-themed socks and space-themed jewelry, and they have JWST earrings, and they have necklaces that are made out of like actual meteorite from some meteorite that crashed into Earth near Sweden.
Yep.
Oh wow!
And they carved them into little space shuttles. They like little meteorite.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Space shuttle necklace and earrings. It's crazy.
It's so cool.
One of our predictions has to do with the mining of asteroids and getting ready for asteroid earrings made out of asteroid substances and that sort of thing. And I think that'll happen in the next. Well, you got to read the book.
Okay.
20 years, I guess.
Read the book, everybody.
I love this. We're combining an ad for the book and an ad for science folks
Yes.
together in one. This is
Yes.
Yeah, I got off
this
track
is
there.
peak.
This is it. This is so
Peak
meta.
capitalism. I love it.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a super cool website. I highly recommend folks to check it out. And if you go to sciencesocks.com/nerd, 10% of your purchase will go towards a donation to a STEM charity. So highly recommended. And you'd be proving Bruce's prediction right if you buy those meteorite earrings.
Start now to prove the book right in the future.
Yes, a self-fulfilling prophecy. I love it. Getting back to our questions, the thing that I wanted to ask you was when you mentioned the kind of early history of JPL, it reminded me of this book that I just read by Malcolm Gladwell, The Bomber Mafia. And he was talking in that about the mentality of the bomber squad that ended up being responsible for a lot of the high altitude, high precision, or attempted high precision bombing campaigns in World War II. And he was saying that when the kind of Air Corps Tactical School that was responsible for their kind of ethos and their modus operandi, that tactical school was basically like the Wild West. They were like, it's a poor pun, but they were flying by the seats of their pants because they had no idea what they were doing. They were just kind of moving fast and breaking things. And I'm so curious, like, from both of your expertise and looking at the history of spaceflight, like, what happens that causes an institution that is necessarily winging it to develop like really strict guidelines and practices?
Well, death of astronauts. I mean, that's the easiest way to. I mean, not the most pleasant way to say it, but the easiest way to say it. After Apollo 1, there was a significant increase in the amount of attention paid to engineering of NASA spacecraft, and after the after the Challenger disaster, a lot of people tell you NASA's whole sort of ethos changed, and it hasn't been the same agency ever since. It's been it went from sort of a go aggressive agency to one that is maybe too cautious. I mean, that's certainly something that my father felt and wrote about it at times. That's my that's my hot take on it. I mean, I think also people with the agency who have accomplished things maybe get a little conservative and are jealous of protecting their accomplishments and not having the agency screw things up and therefore tarnish their legacy. There may be some of that involved as well.
Fair enough. Emily, do you have anything to add on this? Yeah.
Not much. I mean, other than what Bruce said. He said the death of astronauts. I would have said failures. Failures. Nobody likes to see their expensive thing explode.
Right.
So probably that is well as well as the human error, the human risk as well.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Yeah, is that an answer? That gets us into some sensitive territory, but that's sort of my feeling, and NASA has to deal with that image a lot these days, especially when you've got a company like SpaceX, that's got a great record. Don't get me wrong with regard to astronaut safety, but an agency that's perfectly willing to, a company that's perfectly willing to build things and blow them up, and in pursuit of a better rocket. I was down in South Texas just a couple weeks ago watching one of the Starship launches. This was the one on March 6th, I think, March 6th or 7th, and launch was great. The booster catch was great, but they managed to blow up another Starship somewhere over Florida, I think. Emily, I don't know if you saw that, but
I saw a little bit of it outside. It was kind of weird because I'm like, what
I
is that?
saw it.
Yeah.
It was my birthday. I watched it. It was perfect.
Oh wow, never mind. I almost said you got a
I watched it
candle. Woo!
online from California.
Okay.
I wasn't there. but still,
Yeah, I was
transport
kind
could
of hoping
handle it.
they'd hit the trifecta, launch, catch, and a successful trip around the world for Starship. But I think they'll get there.
Yeah, no, it's a fair point. There's kind of a need to be innovative, and the innovation is often tied to trying new things out and taking risks. But you obviously, as you said, you have to balance that with the safety of the people who work for you and the people in the immediate surroundings of test
Yeah, and
facilities and stuff like that.
SpaceX. I mean, they sooner or later they're going to get to that intersection where they have to balance their willingness to take chances against astronaut safety, and the question is, will they be the same company? And I mean, don't get me wrong. I think they've done. I mean, they've been amazing. They've done amazing things. I hope they continue to do amazing things. But Starship is looking like it might be a little harder than anyone thought. Just
Totally.
just because they've been so successful for the last 10, 12 years.
But in the beginning, with the very first three attempts at reusable boosters, there was failure after failure after failure as well. I think
Yep.
Elon said that after the first three attempts, they all blew up, and if they were going to miss the fourth, that would have been the end of SpaceX. And luckily, that's the one that
Right,
worked. And
that's when they were out on the Marshall Islands, right? And
right,
they were trying to send up their first Dragon, not the Dragon, the
right,
first, it was the first, uh, no, not the Dragon, the Falcon. It was the
yeah,
Falcon 1, right? Is that what they were calling it back then? And they were basically on an island full of crabs, and they had three misses, and they were down to their last card, basically. Yeah. So.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, amazing story. I sure liked. I really enjoyed seeing the launch. It was very, very cool.
NASA has this long history of just legends and folklore and just heroes galore for decades. And now the next hot thing is SpaceX with newer rockets and Blue Origin with they just tried New Glenn not too long ago and they're doing their little touristy things going up and down, so they're getting a
Mhm.
lot of popularity. Do you feel like SpaceX and Blue Origin and any other comers, Virgin Galactic say, are going to be wrapped into the one long great story of spaceflight, or are they kind of stealing some of NASA's thunder, as it were?
Hmm. Emily, you want to get some thoughts on
Yeah,
that?
personally, this is more of a gut answer than probably a factual answer. But I don't think anybody can take any credit from NASA whatsoever. What they've done in the last almost 70 years.
Yep.
It's just been nothing short of incredible. They went from not being able to put anything in space to not only sending humans to the moon, but also helping to pioneer long-term space travel, and also launching a pretty impressive, albeit flawed, partially reusable spacecraft, the space shuttle, which, despite all the flaws that we know about it's still a pretty amazing program. I mean, it launched Hubble. It launched a lot of other satellites that really revolutionized spaceflight in the 80s, 90s, beyond. I could sit here and name a bunch of them. So I don't think anybody can take credit from NASA, past, present, or future at all. I think they'll be, as a historian, it's hard for me to say because this is all unfolding as we speak. A lot of stuff is going down right now. And it is, to me, it's overwhelming almost because it feels like every day there's something new. But I think, you know, hopefully it'll be looked at chronologically, sort of as you know, as sort of a building up to something, but also, sort of individually, like these different, contractors and different agencies all, contributed to, pioneering spaceflight in their own ways.
So yeah, Emily, you were saying that it'll really be something that we'll have to see kind of with the perspective of history to understand like just
Yeah.
how pivotal NASA's role has been.
Yeah, and it's a very changing situation right now with all that's going on. You got SpaceX that really has proven themselves to be a huge leader in the last, decade plus. And now you got Blue Origin, with the new Glenn coming up and things like that. Their capabilities are increasing. So a lot of this remains to be written, I suppose.
Okay, yeah, that's fair enough. And Bruce, did you want to add anything to that answer?
Yeah. So the question, as I understand it, is how will the activities of private space companies like SpaceX, Blue Origin, uh, uh, um, Rocket Lab, et cetera, play into this broader tale about our expansion into space, and will NASA be eclipsed? And I do worry about that happening, and I worry because our present administration doesn't seem all that interested in what NASA has increasingly
Mm-hmm.
come to see as its core mission, which is science, and learning about not only the planet and the solar system, but further out as well. And yeah, I mean, SpaceX is great, and they'll be doing some important commercial work, maybe going to taking us to moon and to the moon, and possibly even to Mars at some point. There are a lot of people excited about the commercial possibilities of going to the moon and maybe mining asteroids, and maybe again going to Mars. But NASA and ESA does this a lot too. I mean, they're interested in some bigger questions, and I think that's super important. And we're getting some information all of a sudden back. All of a sudden, I think from the Euclid probe, which I believe is primarily an ESA project, about unbelievable, almost incomprehensible things like the nature of dark matter, which some scientists are saying data indicates may be evolving, and getting into questions about whether Einstein's cosmological constant is what we think it is, and those questions are way beyond me, but fortunately they're not way beyond others, maybe you, Kovi, I don't know, but they get into really important matters about who we are and where we came from, and where the universe is going, and I worry that that maybe some American politicians may not take that seriously enough, and allow NASA to fall behind in that regard.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. The work that myself and other astronomers and astrophysicists do is so dependent on the data that we can get to understand the universe, at different wavelengths, and a lot of that data cannot be obtained here on Earth. Like there is optical light and some radio light, a little bit of infrared light, but the rest of the electromagnetic spectrum does not make it down through our atmosphere, right? So these space-based missions are pivotal to, exactly as you said, to studying the universe and the cosmos and answering these sorts of fundamental questions. And what's frustrating for me, and this is kind of leading into a question, is that these missions take years, or in some cases decades, to plan and build and launch, and then they'll spend similar amounts of time in space returning data. How does that work when we have a 4-year political cycle that will determine the priorities of like budgetary allocation? Is this something that requires more input from private funders or industry? Is this something that maybe we need to be looking outside of NASA to, like you mentioned, Bruce, the ESA, or to organizations overseas? Like, how do I know, Emily, you mentioned that you're a historian, so you can't really judge things as they're unfolding, but where do you see the future of the kind of scientific side of space exploration?
Okay, that's
sorry, it's a big question.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I don't want to. I'm trying to I want to come up with I have an answer, but I'm afraid it'll be. I don't want it to sound too negative. Obviously, at the moment, we have a political regime that's not very fond of science in the United States. I do have, and we've gone through similar things, probably not as extreme, I'm guessing, in the past, during the 70s when I think when Carter came in, there were a lot of concerns that he would cancel the shuttle program and everything that went along with it. Because I think he canceled another like a plane also. So there was a lot of talk like, God, if we don't, land Enterprise correctly, the shuttle program's over type of thing. And all that, science that we're planning for the shuttle is going to go away as well. So it's always, in the
Right.
United States, it's always been contingent on whichever president is in the office and what they like and what they see as important, et cetera, or what the, or what Congress or the Senate thinks is important, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I don't know. Sort of going along with what Bruce says. I mean, um, I don't know. I'm afraid there will be a lot of science cuts. Um, I do look towards ESA, as Bruce was saying. Euclid just made some incredible returns. I just found out about that today, and I was like, "Whoa! I didn't know about it." And one of my friends at work asked me about it. I was like, "That's really cool," I think ESA has always had sort of a different mission than NASA. I think ESA's mission wasn't let's get guys on the moon, let's beat the Soviets. ESA's mission was let's establish science for the betterment of humanity, almost from starting in the 50s. Because they started in a certain, they weren't ESA, but they started back then, basically. If you look at their history, this. But yeah, I think it might. I hate saying this, it might fall to other nations for the next few years, which doesn't thrill me, but it is what it is. It does. I think JWST, I want to say, is a collaboration between several countries, so hopefully that'll save it, somewhat, so it won't fall victim to anything. And also Hubble. Hubble is NASA and ESA as well, and it's still going. I mean, it's been up there for 35, oh my god, 35 years. But I just did the math because I'm like 1990. God, that's incredible. It's still making returns. I mean, yeah, it's probably not in the greatest shape, but it's still making returns after all this time. It's not broken or anything. So
And it's still extremely competitive for scientists to get time on it because it's high quality data that's better than what you can get almost anywhere else on the planet or off the planet.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, it's still a workhorse. Go on, Bruce.
No, it's Kobe, and so scientists around the world can use Hubble. I mean, if they get the proposal approved and they're doing good science, so and that's the case, I think, with JWST. Is it as competitive to get on JWST, or more competitive?
It's more competitive, yeah.
Yeah. Well, just to get back to your question about science and and space exploration, is it possible private individuals could step up and help out? It is possible. I mean, we've had some very rich people who are primarily interested in transportation, but that's not to say that we could have equally wealthy individuals who become interested in fundamental scientific questions, who fund development of something like the Nancy Grace Roman telescope or Vera C. Rubin, something like that. Bill Gates is interested in vaccinations. Maybe someone will step up and say, "Hey, I've got $3 billion and I'm interested in dark matter." I will say we've got several instruments studying dark matter and dark energy now. In fact, I'm not even sure how they overlap exactly, but there is hope. I mean, Peter Beck at Space Lab has decided he wants to mount some sort of mission to Venus for no apparent profitability reason. It remains to be seen whether he does it. But I do hate to see NASA give up its place as sort of the pioneer of space science, and it's such a pays so much tremendous benefits to us, not only in terms of what we find out, but how we impress the rest of the world. And we say in our book that international influence doesn't necessarily come through the barrel of a gun, but maybe through the lens of a telescope. And if we can make American technology like Hubble and JWST available to the world, then we're making friends and we're influencing people, hopefully. And I hate to see us give that up to the Chinese or even to our friends in the ESA.
Although I love I love my friends at ESA, or at ESA. I love them.
Although if
I
we're
want
gonna give it
to.
up, we might as well give it up to them. Yeah. Or the
I love
Australians.
them. It's not a diss, but still, I agree with Bruce said. It would be a shame if we NASA's sort of looked at as sort of like the pioneers. You know, when people see that, just the logos, people are like, "Wow, that's NASA," you know, and stuff like that. You know, there's sort of a prestige that goes with it. So yeah, it would. I think that's what Bruce is trying to get at. There's a certain message that comes with, you know, that we're top of the line in science and technology.
NASA is a great name. I was gonna name my sons NASA, but I ended up having daughters, so it didn't work.
I've not heard
So you
this
named
story.
them
Wow.
Issa instead.
Choose row.
Sorry.
Oh,
Anyway. Okay, so
All right.
I think we've exhausted our seriousness quotient here.
all right,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Good.
Sorry about that.
I'm down to
All
about
right, let's
60%.
have one fun question before we jump into our rapid fire thing at the end.
lightning
Okay.
round.
All right, it's a fun, lighthearted one. What is one space artifact or mission patch that each of you finds like deeply moving?
Space artifact or mission patch?
Or
Well, my
photograph?
favorite
I would say
space
photograph,
artifact-
but that's kind of a gimme.
It's not really a space artifact. I have a photograph of my dad's class, astronaut class, Group 5, and it's signed by all of them but one. And I don't know. My dad had that up in his study as I was growing up, and I've got it now. And I think I'd say that's probably my favorite space-related artifact.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so
Nice.
I can show it to you if you want.
What about you, Emily?
Oh
Yeah.
boy.
That's it.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, I don't have mine next to me right now. It's at home, but I don't know how to explain this. God, I'm gonna get in so much. I have a signed bedpost from astronaut Al Warden. So that's
Nice.
probably my favorite. That's probably my favorite artifact. It was a joke present, but I do have a signed bedpost from Al Warden. It says, "I slept on this bed," signed Al Warden, something like that. And it's literally a bedpost that's like been sanded on both ends. I had to carry it around for the whole day. I got it, and everybody was like, "Why do you have furniture with you?" And I was like, "Oh, Al Warden gave it to me."
It's a
And everybody was
bedpost.
like, I told Vance Brand, you know, astronaut Vance Brand, Bruce knows who this is.
Oh yeah, sure.
Vance Brand was like, "Why do you have furniture with you?" And I was like, "Your colleague Al Warden gave it to me," and Vance started laughing. I was like, "Oh my god!" So yeah, so that's probably I have a lot of artifacts that are pretty neat, but that's probably my number one artifact. So yeah.
No, that's special. Yeah.
Oh,
There
here's
needs to be
mine.
some sort of space story
All right,
museum
yeah.
or something.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
wicked awesome.
Yeah, there's
that's
here's
so cool.
Bruce McCandless down
That's
there. He signs
amazing.
Me.
Me.
Love that.
Anyway,
It's cool.
I like keeping that around.
Well, for folks who are just listening to this episode, you have incentive now to go onto YouTube or TikTok to see that and freeze frame and try to look and see if you can identify all the different astronauts there. Wow. So cool.
That is cool.
All right. So we have now a rapid fire round
Oh,
that we're going to try to do 11 questions in 5 minutes.
Oh
gonna go-
god. Okay.
didn't we
We're
just
going to
do
go back
one?
and forth.
I think we just did one, didn't we?
That was a fun one. It was more a conversational one. This one's quick and fast and kind of funny.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
First thing that comes to your head, just
No
rapid
idea.
fire
Probably
answers.
You realize I'm the dumbest person you've ever had on your show, so please just that's
No.
the handicap.
I don't know. I've been on every
You can go
single one
0
of them.
for 11.
Surely not. All right. So I will say whoever can answer this fastest gets the question, and then we'll go back and forth. So you don't
Oh,
both have to
boy.
answer it unless you have something. Yeah. Okay. What is the weirdest thing that you believed as a kid?
What is that weird? That my parents were always right.
Love it. Perfect answer. All right, Benjamin, next one.
Next question. Which teacher had the biggest positive impact on you?
Mr. O'Donnell, probably in high school. He was
Wrong.
a history teacher. Why is that wrong? Why?
Mr. Donald's awesome.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay. Which scientific discovery do you wish you could have witnessed in person?
Oh wow. Ah, scientific discovery. I guess it would be the seeing those plumes of material being ejected from, what was it, Io, when
Yep.
Voyager was out
Yep.
going past the moons of I'm going to say Jupiter. I hope I got the right planet.
Yep.
associated with
I
that
think
moon.
it was Jupiter. I
Um,
think.
Yeah.
but I think that would have been. I mean, I guess I'm a little space centric here, but I think that would have been super cool. Because it was sort of unexpected, and it brings up this idea that all these objects in the solar system have these lives of their own, these sort of tectonic and in some cases volcanic lives of their own. And it's like I liken it to walking into a room full of stuffed heads on the wall, mounted, animals mounted on the wall, and looking around and all of a sudden seeing one blinking and thinking, oh my God,
It's
there's
alive.
life out
It's
there.
sentient. It's sentient.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
also, Galileo discovering the moons around Jupiter, that would have been pretty cool. Although I don't think they bathed very much back then, so maybe keeping it in the 20th century would be good, or 21st century.
All right, that works. Well, speaking of Galileo, if you had to pick one historical scientist to go bowling with, who would it be?
Oh no, I know what this. Okay, I got an answer. Even though he probably wasn't a great bowler, Gerard K. O'Neill. We're gonna talk
Oh, she
about
loves that
space.
guy.
I love him. Yeah, we're gonna talk about space habitats while bowling. Yeah, that's what we're doing. Although I doubt he
I
would
love
like
it.
bowling, but yeah, that would. But that's what I would choose. Maybe a
I'd
second
do it
if I had
Einstein.
to.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I could beat
Yeah,
Einstein because he was kind of a small guy and not physically
he's a
fit.
little.
So I would bet Einstein I could beat him, and I bet I could. I think I could probably take some money off that guy.
He was a bit of a prankster and a jokester too. He would have had a good time.
Nice. All right. If you were a sandwich, what kind of sandwich would you be? Go.
Bruce.
Grilled cheese.
Grilled cheese. Oh, that was awesome.
I think about that a lot, actually.
These are the questions that scientists really
Just
care about, not
wandering
dark
around.
matter.
Or a sandwich. What is your most controversial opinion about pizza?
Oh.
Okay, that green olives belong on pizza.
Heck yes.
I've
they
gotten
do.
in arguments about this. Not the I could care. Pineapple goes either way, but some people have an insane hatred of green olives.
Is that controversial? I've never met anyone who didn't like green olives on pizza.
Okay, my husband hates green.
I have met
Okay.
people who don't like it. I'm with
My
Emily on
husband
this
hates
one.
green olives. He won't like if I order that, he just won't eat the damn pizza. So
Oh wow.
yeah, I know people who will not, and I know other people who feel likewise because I'm like, what do you have against olives? They're delicious. So yeah, that's probably my controversial
yeah.
take.
That's a good one.
Okay.
Fair enough.
I'm
All
sure.
right. What is your favorite scientific word or phrase?
Do I have to know the meaning of it?
No?
What about syzygy? Is that a word?
Syzygy is a great word. It's a great word. Yes.
Okay, good. That's
syzygy,
mine,
for folks listening who are not familiar, syzygy is the alignment of planets and suns and moons. So basically, when there is a solar eclipse, we are seeing a syzygy between the sun, Earth, and moon. Yes.
I thought it was a rash. I'm sorry. But your definition's better.
This is awesome.
I
What
haven't seen
is
that
your
word in a
least
minute.
favorite scientific word or phrase?
Oh, least favorite.
God, it has nothing to do with space, but probably purulence.
Purulence.
Yeah, purulence, like
Pussiness? What is that? Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
pus.
Scientific word
It
or
has
phrase?
nothing to do with space, but it's not a word you really want to hear or see ever because that usually means
Sure.
something disgusting. Like, okay.
No.
The reason why I say this is because I actually watch. Okay, I'm a loser. Here's where it comes out. I watch the zip popping channel sometimes
I
because
love
they're
that Dr.
fascinating.
Yes.
Yes, I love her, and I'm fascinated. Like, if I honestly had not gone into what I do, I probably would become a zit popper for a living. And and they always say when they have like a boil, they're like, and you see the purulence here, and I'm like, that's disgusting. I hate that word. So, yeah.
My camera is
you're
off,
all
but I
nerd.
am nodding
We-
so
we were-
intensely
we were
in
talking
right
about-
now.
We were talking about sandwiches and pizza. Now we're off in some horrible thing.
Well, she brought us there. Our questions were
It's my
innocent. She
fault.
started
I did
it.
this.
No, it's fine.
But y'all,
If
that is a disgusting scientific word.
Emily, if you want to be in another lifetime a professional purulence popper, that is perfectly acceptable.
Of course, I'd want to wear like a shield, Yeah.
For sure. Okay, next question. What is your favorite? What is your favorite useless science fact?
Useless science fact. Oh my god. I don't know that I have a useless science fact. They're all pretty useful, aren't they? I mean, this is a pro science
think so.
show, isn't it? Yeah,
It is pro science, but there's some goofy ones that are like, yeah, I guess.
We weave all these facts together, and we end up with a beautiful tapestry. So they're all very useful, I think. How
I'll
about that for
accept that.
cop out?
Sure. Yeah. No.
There are no useless facts.
All right. Accepted. If you could rename one planet in our solar system, what would you call it?
Uranus needs a better name just because it gets made fun of so much.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah, just because it gets trolled so dang much. It's really a beautiful planet. It's like that beautiful greenish color. It's on its side. I don't know what I would call it other than I don't know. It's like an aqua. It's like almost like an aquamarine or topaz or something like that. Maybe something jewel toned. I have no idea.
Is that its Greek name, and maybe there's a Latinate cognate that we could call it instead? I can't. It's not a god. It was a type, wasn't it? Wasn't Uranus a type?
Yeah, I think so. It's just because it gets made fun of so much, and nobody wants to talk about it in school because it has an embarrassing name. You don't want to say it in class.
Right. We could get away from the whole.
Whenever I post an article on Science Actually about Uranus, I get all the comments every time.
Correct. I think I posted something in Space Hipsters once about it, and it got like 600 likes, and it was just lols. And I was like, no, this is And of course, the headline was something terrible. Like, I don't even want to repeat what it was, but it was a serious article, and it got the likes for the wrong reason. So
of course we'd be depriving the nation's fifth graders of some comedy gold that's been used for generations now. But, yeah, it might be worth it.
Okay, so you change Uranus to something funny. Still funny, it has to be. Cool. Okay, last question, and you can both answer this one. If you had to sing one karaoke song to save humanity from an alien invasion, what would it be? It could be a duet as well, if the two of you want.
I would sing When the Ship Comes In, that old Bob Dylan tune that the Decemberists just re-recorded. It's such a great song, and I have no idea what it's about, but I really love it.
I'm embarrassed. Bruce has such a poetic answer. I'd probably sing the Pina Colada song, the fight song with the Chris. I'd probably sing that because I know the lyrics, and it's like the dumbest song ever. And it's if you listen to the lyrics, it's pretty horrible. Actually, it's about a dude cheating, but I'd probably sing that. Sorry. Sorry.
No, there are no wrong answers. I mean, our guest last week answered "Twinkle Twinkle Little Star." That was her answer. So there are no wrong answers.
No wrong answer.
This is a good round.
Right on.
Those are hard questions, guys.
Yeah,
but they're fun.
Yeah, they're fun.
Yeah.
I agree.
Had to dig deep.
It's like a dating game or something, Now we really know each other.
Well, yeah. Now that all of our listeners and watchers have heard these dating game answers, where would they be able to find you on social media if they wanted to reach out to you?
I'm on Facebook, and I participate in the Space Hipsters conversations fairly often. And I've got a website, www.brucemccandless.com. And that's really about it. I mean, I'm not super active. I don't do any Twittering or anything like that.
Fair enough.
Um, I'm on pretty much every social media except X. I'm on Space Hipsters on Facebook. I also want to give a shout out on Bruce's website. I believe he has a lot of the notes for the book on there. We didn't have an index in the book because the book was kind of very extensive, but we have sort of our notes and some source notes on his website. So I want to point people towards that as well if they'd like to learn more about the sourcing in the book.
Good point. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Awesome.
Very cool. Benjamin, where can the good people find you?
Please look up Science Actually on all the social media platforms. Facebook is the biggest, but also you can find on Instagram and Threads, and I don't think Hive exists anymore. I know I keep saying that, but Mastodon is a fun one. And if you want to watch this show, please go to TikTok or to YouTube. You can see us, or you can see me for most of this episode. And how about you, Tom?
Folks can find me on all the good social media platforms and also the bad ones at Fun Fact Science. Feel free to reach out to me or to Benjamin and tell us what you want to see and hear on future episodes, additional topics, questions, quibbles, queries, other dating questions. And this has been great. Thank you both so much for your time.
Thank you both for taking the time.
Thank
you.
This was fun.
I had a great time. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Wonderful. Yeah. All right. We'll see you all next time on the next episode of Science Actually Presents The Nerd and the Scientist.